Welcome to In the Loop with Laura. Today we have Susan Morris on talking about the many baby knits that she has knitted. I wanted to point out to you just what a wonderful gift, some handmade item. It doesn't have to be knitted, it can be crocheted, smocked, quilted, even a rug for the mom to stand on in front of the crib. All of these things are wonderful baby gifts. And our library, again, is a wonderful resource to find out more about them. So after you watch this show, please be sure to go to our library and check out many of the wonderful things, including Knit Baby Head to Toe, and there's also a crochet baby book. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and as always, if you have someone you would like me to interview, or if you have any questions or comments, please email us at intheloop@rtc1.com. Thanks again. Welcome to In the Loop with Laura. Today I'm honored to have Susan Morris with me, and some of you might know her. Susan, what is your other life besides crafting?
I am a full-time real estate agent, broker associate with Gottschalk Realty here in town.
So I bet a lot of you already know her or have perhaps bought a house from her. I'm sure if you're interested in selling a house or if you're interested in finding out more about knitting baby sweaters, you can contact Susan and we'll have some of that information on the screen.
That would be wonderful.
But we're here actually to talk about her other life, her crafting life. When did you first start crafting?
Do you know, when I was growing up, I really didn't think I was all that crafty. And then there came a point, I think I started scrapbooking first.
Okay.
And I used to tease the girls at the scrapbooking store that scrapbooking was my Valium. I could go to the scrapbooking store and sit down and have all these textures, and because there's more than just paper.
Right.
In scrapbooking.
Colors and patterns and three-dimensionality as well, and the stickers.
And so I thought, oh, this is a great time, and it calmed me. So, and then I'm a musician also, and so that is more for my ear. But then after I scrapbooked, our Tri Kappa Association that I belong to started doing a chair fair.
Yes.
And so every 2 years, we get chairs, and we ask local artists to paint these chairs for us. And we also ask our membership if they have any creative background, if they'd like to paint for us too. And I thought, well, maybe I could give it a try. So the first year I got so excited about it, I painted 2.
Okay.
And I don't consider myself a painter at all. I just consider myself a craftsperson.
Okay.
And they both came out really well, so then I started painting.
Okay, so we've got scrapbooking, music, painting.
I know, too much. And so Lisa Lee, when she had her knitting store here in town, she said, Susan, you need to come and knit. And I said, oh, Lisa, that's the last thing that I need, is to have another project going on.
Our words are very powerful.
Yes. And in the meantime, my father, my mother died in 1985, very young in life, and she had a whole set of needles in her knitting bag and everything. And my father came to me and he said, okay, Susan, Mom had been gone for 20 years and we need to decide what we're going to do with this knitting bag. Would you like me to offer it out to some people, or would you like to have it? And I said again, I do not need another project, Dad. As much as I would love to have Mother's needles, I can't do that.
Tell me you got them. You didn't give them away?
Oh, I didn't. 2 years later, I'm knitting.
Oh, that's sad.
2 years later, I'm knitting. And then it ends up being a voracious, I have to do it morning, noon, and night.
Okay, so
like you. Like you.
Yes, some people may have seen me through town knitting at a variety of different venues. It's fun. So what about knitting got you like that? Do you have any idea, or it's just the way it is?
I like the textures. I love to feel the threads, the skeins, the everything. I like to see it blend. I love chunky, but I love soft.
Lots of different variety.
I love the modern styles, and I love the classics. And I love to mix.
So why didn't you try it earlier?
I don't. Well, the first time I knitted, honest, I was 4 years old.
Oh.
And we were on a family trip with my aunt and my grandma in this little car, and we were going to Iowa to see my great aunt. And so my aunt taught me how to knit and purl, and we made Christmas bells.
You were 4.
I was 4.
That's amazing. Do you still have any of those bells?
Gina? Oh, I bet my father does. I bet
Wow.
my father, I'll have to ask him about that.
Yeah.
But then after that, I didn't do it again until like 10 years ago.
But sometimes just even muscle memory. It doesn't. It's still going to be awkward, but then you remember this is.
Didn't
Oh,
take
really?
me long at all to pick it back up again.
So when we're talking about knitting with you, what are what you would consider your specialties?
Oh, my baby sweaters.
Baby sweaters.
My baby sweaters.
And some of you might actually have some baby sweaters that Susan has knit, because how many have you knit since, when did you start knitting?
I would say, well, 8 years ago is when I started knitting. When I started knitting for children, 'cause my oldest son is 33, and all of a sudden all of his friends that he grew up was having babies, and I wanted to gift them something special because they grew up at our house. So I started giving to them. And then our church, I thought, I wanted to give something to our church, and the youth of our church and the young adults is our future. So I wanted to make them feel as special as what I truly think they are, and how much hope that we have in them. So I wanted to give them a gift from my heart. So I would say 3 years ago, I started knitting baby sweaters, not quite knowing what I was going to get into.
Yes, which is oftentimes good, right?
It is. It truly is, because I like to give each one a different sweater and something unique to their personalities. I like to ask the moms, too, what colors they'd
That's
like.
really kind.
So, like, I had one couple, the Miller baby, Justin and Marianne Miller.
Okay.
They wanted Purdue colors.
All right.
So, and isn't it great that Purdue colors are Rochester colors? So I made him a sports sweater that was black, white, and gold.
Oh my goodness,
And
a
the-
sports sweater.
Yeah, and then the buttons I put on it were footballs.
Oh, very
And what was
sweet.
footballs and basketballs. So that was a fun sweater.
Basketballs.
Yes.
So going back, how many in 3 years, Susan, have you produced?
I know that this year we had 10 babies.
Okay.
So I am thinking a minimum of 20 sweaters for the church in the last 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a lot of personal knitting done
I understand
in the
completely.
last 3 years.
Yeah, and we have, because you've given them all away and they've been worn, you don't have 20 sweaters to bring in to show.
No.
But we have just a few that she's brought in, and let's start with these two.
Do you want to start with this one? This is my special sweater. This was given to Lindsay and Alec Berlin for their first child, Addie. And Lindsay is a special young lady to me. About 20 years ago, my husband and I had a child that was born with severe neurological damage. And he lived until he was 18 months old. And Lindsay was, she was maybe 8 at the time. And even though this child who was severely disabled, he would have seizures between 30 to 50 a day. And she was just, to her, Will was her baby doll. And I have wonderful pictures of them together, and although he had very, very little cognizance, he adored her, and as soon as he would hear her voice, he would start cooing.
How sweet is
It
that?
is. So when it came time for her to have her first baby, I wanted her to have something special too.
How sweet.
Yes. And so I did this. I made the buttons
made the buttons.
Yes, which the top one is broken. I went and picked it up from Lindsay this morning.
I see how it's got the doubled.
And I took this, and these are different shaped pearls. Yeah, and I glued them with hot glue together.
That's fantastic. I've
So-
never seen anything like that. So here's
And then the buttonholes.
the buttonhole, and it's like a double.
Little toggle.
Isn't that sweet? And it balances out.
And then I thought, well, do you know what? That's really pretty at the top, but what about the rest of it? So I got down to the bottom, and really what I did was I covered up a mistake.
Oh, isn't that clever? We call it a design element.
Yes, that's what I thought too. So this little ribbing is not supposed to be there. I got off on my counts.
Oh, I didn't even notice it.
Yes, that little section I got off on my counts. So I decided, well, how do I cover that up? And I put little flowers. And then after I put the little flowers on, I said, it needs something more yet. So I found little pearls.
See brown pearls down, which brings down the pearl element in the button. That's beautiful.
To tie it all together.
And you've got those all the
On
way
back.
around the band. That's
And a little dog
gorgeous.
hair.
This is like a it's like a little duster. And is this a slip stitch?
Yes.
And that gives
I think it's three knits and then a slip. And I love, the slip stitch gives it such texture.
it gives it a lot of texture, and also that ribbing
Design.
pulls it in right where you want it to be pulled in, and then the regular stocking knit makes it flare a little bit. And the sleeves match that exactly. So where did you get this?
Oh, Phoebe. I was here. Okay. There was a yarn shop, unfortunately, that's closed up in Plymouth called The Loft, the Yarn Loft, and some good friends of mine owned that, and I would go up to her shop, and she asked me, would I knit this sweater for her? And this is a story about a mom
Mouse.
mouse, that's right, who knits a sweater.
Oh, look, she's got her own little sweater
Mouse
basket.
knits.
Oh.
And her needles. And
So she looks like she desperately needs a sweater. Look at this. She's sweaterless.
And so the whole story is about this mouse, and there she is knitting, and she's got her afghan on. So she worked on Phoebe's sweater. At the very end,
Oh, she has a spinning wheel. I like this mouse already.
yeah. At the very end, then, is the pattern.
Oh, for a
Phoebe,
mouse,
Phoebe
too.
Mouse, there's a dress. And here is the sweater. Now the sweater had a hood on the back of it. I chose not to put the hood on the back of it. Holly and Jody, the owner of the store, asked me if I would knit this. And we used the Brown Sheep Company's Lamb's Pride Superwash Bulky.
Okay, so it's super wash. You can wash it, which is
Correct.
good for a child.
And it has been.
And it's good for a gift as well when you don't know if
Correct.
people will be able to take care of it.
I try to give instructions with all of my giveaways. Now here it is, and shows the hood behind it.
And this is in a different color. It's got a hood.
For a much larger girl.
And then the same
There's the hood back there.
has a mouse doll with a little knit in the round dress, and the mouse can have the same
Sweater.
sweater. And there it is, the Phoebe doll sweater. So I'm sure that someone could order this on Amazon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a very popular book, and I use this pattern is what the Lindsay's Addie's little sweater is.
Okay.
Two different techniques. They show it in the bulky, but I liked the pattern so well that I decided to use it and do a different variation of it.
Right, and again, this is by Joanna Johnson. And here we have the full-size sweater without the hood. So if we can look up here.
And my granddaughter wears that. She lives in Texas. And so when she comes and visits us at Christmas time, just to go from the car into a store, or something like that, she can wear this sweater. She's 6 years old, and I made it big for her. We rolled up the sleeves, and she's been wearing
you
it
can
for the
cuff it.
last 2 years.
Aw, and you've got the same exact buttons that were called in there.
Yep.
And everything except the hood. And if you wanted to put a hood on, it'd be easy to do. You can, in fact, you
Yes.
could probably add it if you
Yes.
found out, gee, want it on
And
now.
I chose not to put the hood on because Isabel's such an active little girl, and I didn't want it behind her in the car seat all bulked up. So that's why I chose just to go with the square hood, or the square neckline.
But this is the super wash bulky. And no flowers, but
No
it also
flowers.
matches the book exactly. I'm assuming that you probably gave the book with it.
I did not.
Oh, really?
I did not. Because when Isabel's parents are divorced, so when she comes and sees me, then I have the opportunity to read the book to her. And it can be our special time. And hopefully soon she'll want to sit down and knit. But she's very active, so it might be a while.
Sometimes it helps them sit down if their hands are active. Well, those are beautiful, and this is such a beautiful yarn you chose for this. It's
Thank you. It's yummy.
It's yummy.
It's yummy.
Beautiful to touch. And then here are a couple other baby sweaters that you have knit as gifts. Is this?
This one, let me think for a minute. Who's this going to go to?
While you're thinking, I'll just
Go
point out
ahead.
we've got a little doubled over edging
I
here.
know who that's going to
We've
go
got-
to.
Are we allowed to say?
Yes, because
Okay.
this will come on after I give it to her. Okay. Because I was going to give it to her yesterday at church, and then I thought, oh no, I need to keep this for the show.
Well, if you see a child wearing this around
Yes.
town, be sure that you let them know. Oh yeah, I've seen that. We've got a beautiful twisted rib here.
Very easy to do, and it keeps you from getting bored. Sometimes when you're knitting, just knitting, sometimes that gets a little boring and you need to have a little bit of a challenge. So the twisted knit brought that in.
And it looks like you've got it just from the front here and just in the back, but these are sewn in pieces, correct? And the raglan sleeves are sewn in. So who is this for?
Oh, this is Avery Berlin, which is funny now that I think about it, because it's Addie's sister.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, and you've got this a little flower on it too, so I think that's perfect.
Yes, since it had the buttons under, after I finished it, I thought, it just needs something to make it pop a little more. So I made her a little flower.
Well,
and then I didn't like the flower without a middle, so I had to think of what I was going to do, just a little bobble. And then I decided, I've got this in my sewing
adorable.
kit.
That's adorable. It gives it that little zing that every girl needs.
Yes.
And then we've got two
This-
other special baby knits here.
This is, and I'm thinking about this right now. I should have gone back and thought more about it because I can't remember where I got this pattern from. I think this is a Ravelry pattern.
Okay, so when you are looking for somebody who has done 20 knitting things, where do you go to get these ideas? Because you said you wanted them all to be slightly different, a little bit tweaked, even the pattern, according to what the parents want, the colors, or whatever it is. What do you do when you're faced with a year of 10 babies?
Ravelry. A lot of times I'll go to different stores, and unfortunately, with the economy the way it is, we've lost a lot of our local knitting stores. And I know it's great to go to the big box stores and buy your yarn, but if you find a local yarn shop that you like, you don't just get yarn there. You get advice there. You get camaraderie. If you get stuck in a pattern, you have somebody that helps you, which Laura is absolutely great at that if you have problems. Lisa Lee also. Holly Shorter Pfeiffer, she's a lawyer here in town. She lives up in Plymouth. And and Linda Walters. Great people with tons of knitting experience that love to help you when you get to a blimp.
To a hurdle. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, but I do encourage people to use local knitting stores, and it was great when Lisa had her store here. There's a new store that has opened in Wabash called Knit Together.
I've not been there.
But when you do purchase your supplies and things from the store, they'll help you, and so
Give you advice on what you can and can't do with a certain pattern, and what yarns will make it lay better.
Right.
Because you don't want a stiff yarn if you're going to have a flowing piece.
Just things like that, people who are familiar with the yarns in their stores. So,
I had a certain yarn, and I went to Ravelry, and I put the yarn into the search box.
okay, so I know we've talked about this before, but just to let you know at home,
okay.
if you have the internet, or if you don't, you can go to the library and look up www.ravelry with an A, RAVELRY.com. And it's a wonderful resource for knitters and crocheters. It has links to free patterns, it has links to paid patterns, and lots of information. Like Susan said, you can go to a pattern and see everybody else who's ever made that pattern on the site. There are some where there's thousands.
Yeah.
And people will say, I recommend this, I made it a little shorter, this color worked. You can look at their pattern, the pictures.
Sometimes it's like Pinterest, though. You have to
yeah.
be very careful.
It'll absorb a week.
Yeah, yeah. Once you get started, you have to say, okay, I have 10 minutes. And then you have to cut it off, because otherwise you're going to be shopping for a long time.
Voice of experience. So you settled on this one, which has the same kind of qualities, where it brings in the bodice. It's easy to knit. It's going to also probably last for a long time because of that stretchy potential.
My biggest mistake when I made this, because we all make mistakes, is the fact that when I got it done, because it called for a bigger needle than I used, and I used a smaller needle because I thought, estimating that I was doing it the way I wanted it done, and then it ended up being very small.
Is this is smaller than you wanted?
This is smaller than I wanted it.
So, Susan, I have to ask the question.
Yes.
Did you do a gauge swatch?
I did not. I know. You're a big proponent of the gauge swatch.
Well, just because of this situation.
And do you know why I don't do a gauge swatch?
Because a sweater is about the size of a gauge swatch.
Yeah. No, it's because I'm a big knitter. Everything that I do always ends up bigger than what. So I never worried about it. I figured, the children will grow into it.
Yeah, but you have to know how many balls you need. Anyway.
Yes, you're correct. You're absolutely correct. And that's a shortcut that Laura's right, and I'm not right at all about this.
But you always end up with a sweater if this doesn't fit the intended child. Children come in all sizes.
That's right. And so I'm going to save this for a preemie baby.
Okay.
Which, everybody, we have preemie babies. And after I saw it, it only took one skein of yarn. I can
One
whip
skein of
this-
what? What is this?
It was Cherub Aram.
Okay.
Erin. And I whipped it up so quickly. And so I thought, you know what? And this needs more effort.
So is this still the same ball of yarn?
No.
Oh, thank goodness.
No, because unfortunately, again, the knitting store was closing, and so I got 50% off. So I bought every skein of this yarn that they had left, because it
great for
was
babies.
it was like a $12 skein of yarn, and so I was getting it for $6. It's so soft.
It is very soft, and you said it's machine washable.
Yes.
So here is just a sweet little hat. Again, it's the knit always has a little bit of a stretch to it, a little bit of lace for a delicate look. It's really beautiful.
And this, the edge was supposed to be a tricot.
Oh yeah,
So what you're supposed to do is fold it over.
fold it under and whip it down.
Yeah, so you have a tricot edge like that. I chose not to do it because I just like that look right there.
So really, you weren't supposed to have multiple. Were you supposed to have several rows before the picot, or it was really supposed to be that short?
It was supposed to be just that short, like that.
Well, that wouldn't be very comfortable either. Very cute. And now we have this last beautiful heirloom baby knit.
Definitely not least.
What is this made out of? Let's hold it up here so that we can, because it's got to see its magnificence
I
first.
cannot think of what I used on that. Isabel is 6 years old. This is my granddaughter's bridal.
Christening dress.
Christening bridal. I told my daughter last night, I was whispering it, I said, when you get married, I'm going to knit your gown. And she goes, oh no, you're not.
The trials of having a crafty mother.
Yes.
So here, this is beautiful. So it looks like it was probably a neck down, or was it bottom up?
Bottom up.
Okay. So you cast on at this
No,
lace.
you're wrong. I'm wrong.
Is it down?
It is down.
Okay.
It was down. And
So you cast on this little loop that your precious granddaughter baby head would go through. And then increase, increase, increase. You get to this point, I'm guessing it was knit two together, yarn over. So produced, the knitting fabric itself produces a hole that ribbon will go through. And then hold off some stitches for the arms, and away you go. This is lovely. This is a feather and fan lace. Was it a challenge to knit?
there were several places that were a challenge in it because you had to expand and you had to increase and you had to decrease.
Oh, sure, because you're
different places.
gradually going to a
Yes.
bell.
So this was a challenge. I probably have 30 hours in this. And then we didn't finish it exactly the way because the way the pattern read, but sometimes with patterns you have to improvise on them because sometimes there'll be errors in them.
Okay.
So when we got to the bottom, there was supposed to be another lace panel on the bottom of a different pattern. And I had Lisa look at it, I had Holly look at it, and I had Linda Walters look at it. And none of us could understand what the pattern wanted when we looked at the picture of it. And sometimes those things happen. And so what we did was we decided how we were going to end it ourselves.
And it did. It's done.
And it's very long. Like it was a foot longer than what Isabel was.
Right.
When she was baptized, she probably came down to here.
Right.
So it was kind of fun, and she could have bare feet, which I love babies at baptisms with bare feet. And we had a little pink bow in her hair, and
Oh, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's an heirloom. And that can happen with errata, which means errors in some of your knitting patterns. One thing you can do is, if it's in a magazine or in a book, you can look online with the name of that book, the name of the pattern, and the word errata, and it might bring up something. Or in Ravelry, you can see if anyone says, there's an error here.
right.
Yes.
And this was a free pattern that I got on Knitting Pattern Central.
Okay.
And sometimes they do come back with explanations at the end of the pattern where an error has been pointed out.
They'll tack it on.
Yeah, in this one that hadn't been discovered at that time.
Yep, but you helped probably to open someone's eyes to it, and then they'll
Yeah.
fix it for the next person. Well, I am really appreciative, Susan, of you being on today,
Oh, thank you.
and hope that you can come back and tell us more about some other knitting adventures that you have. And for those of you out there, take a look at some baby stuff. It's such, like, Susan's very intentional on this, to make a beautiful, homemade, handmade item that's useful, and there's a little something warm to stick on a little person. It's a beautiful thing that you've started, and I hope you can continue.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in, and say hello to Susan when you see her around town.